The struggle is real. The oldest members of the Gen Zs have entered the workforce. Employers are now faced with a new challenge, one they've never had to deal with before, which is understanding and supporting the needs of this unique generation. Now, born between 1997 and 2012, Gen Zs have grown up in a world of rapid technological change, social media saturation, and shifting societal values. As a result, they bring a distinct set of expectations, values, and work styles to the workplace. Now, despite their potential, many Gen Zs struggle to thrive in traditional workplaces. The reasons range from lack of autonomy and flexibility to insufficient development opportunities to the most common one, toxicity that affects their mental health, and so many more. This is Fafanua Africa, and today we discuss why Gen Zs seem not to thrive in workplaces and what the possible solutions are. Now, this is a show where we spotlight the challenges, the opportunities, and the issues that the youth are faced with on a daily basis. I'm Blessings Musugu, and today I'll be taking you through 1 hour of bliss, so sit tight. Gen Zs prioritize mental health and well-being. They're more open about their struggles with anxiety, depression, and other mental health issues. Now, traditional workplaces, with their emphasis on productivity and performance, may not provide adequate support for mental health and the well-being of this group of people. Now, employers who neglect to provide resources and support for mental health may see their Gen Z employees struggle to cope. But this is just one out of the many reasons why it seems Gen Zs always struggle in their 9-to-5 jobs, especially. So let's talk. Today we have the recruiters represented, and of course we have the Gen Zs represented. Joining us is Joshua Oluwadepo, a senior HR consultant, Jobberman, who's joining us from Lagos, Nigeria, but joining us virtually. Thank you so much, Joshua, for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Good afternoon.
Pleasure. All right, we also have in the studio with us Baki Adams, who is a student and intern in the University of Lagos. He is joining us live in the studio. Thank you so much, Baki Adams, for joining us, for coming back again. It's a pleasure.
Nice to see you once again.
It's great to have you as well. All right, we also have Ifepe Nnennia, who is a lecturer, Public Law Department, Madonna University, Okija, joining us from Anambra, Nigeria. Ifepe, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. All right, back in the studio, we also have Mohammed Adijat, who's a student of political science in the University of Lagos. Thank you so much, Mohammed Adijat, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so it's more like a Gen Z versus recruiters thing, and it's a tell-it-all show. So feel free to express yourselves, the Gen Zs in the house, and of course the recruiters represented. All right, so I want us to start with the Gen Zs, right? Let me start with Baki Adams. Baki Adams, what are the most significant differences, in your opinion, between the Gen Z's expectations and the previous generations, like the millennials, the baby boomers, in the workplace?
All right, so thank you very much for having me once again. All right, so the question is something I'd like to take from this angle. To understand the difference between two generations, you just have to look at their backdrop, and that's the question of nurture. How did they grow up? What kind of circumstances, what kind of environment did they grow up into? Now, if you look at millennials, you look at Gen Zs, the difference is quite clear. Let's start first from the aspect of rapid technological development. From 1997 down to 2012, the rate at which technology has improved is quite stellar to say. And this kind of improvement has a way of affecting the generation, which is the Generation Z. Now look at millennials. You won't say technology didn't advance that much during their period, but comparing these two times, you'd see how there's that difference based on rapid technological change and also the adaptation. Are millennials ready to adapt? There's also that struggle and that gap. So in terms of that, you just look at the nurture, how were these two generations raised? It's in that you find the question as to why there's so much differences between the Gen Z and the Gen Millennial. And to end it, I would put it like this. Because of how technology has improved, there's free access and easy access to information. Now, one thing I would like to put out is for Generation Z, empathy is sky high. in the sense that we've been exposed to a lot of things based on the kind of circumstances that have happened. I know you'd want to say millennials have also experienced similar, but it's quite different. And as the conversation progresses, I think we'll identify how these things have been.
Great. Okay, let me come to Joshua. Would you say that the peculiarities between the millennials and the previous generations and the Gen Zs are much? What would you say the differences are, seeing that you are in the field of recruiting and you've probably come across both generations or even more? What would you say the peculiar differences between these two generations are?
All right, thank you, everyone. Thanks for having me. All right, so I'll just pick up from where he stopped. Right, he had said something very interesting about the times, the different seasons. We have a different timing where the Gen Zs were giving birth to, and the millennials and the baby boomers. And technology has shaped the development of these people we're talking about now, the Gen Z. So I would say the major differences would be that the millennials, they've been taught on how to go for what they want, from the point of hustling. I will use the word hustling, like working hard for what they want to achieve in life. But somehow, because of the technology within the Gen Z period of time, we have this ease of things. So they believe things shouldn't be that difficult, shouldn't be that hard. We shouldn't have to go this way or that way. Why not? They want things simplified. They want faster routes to get things done. So looking at the workspace when it comes to recruitment now, what I've been doing for some years now, and I would say that the Gen Z, based on exposure and information that they now have, they have a better way of approaching job seeking. And within them also, we have some sets. I would say they are in two sets. The ones who know, and they know that they know, and we have the sets who doesn't know, but think that they know. That's the second part of the Gen Zs. So you see them applying for jobs, applying for, trying to go into an institution, and they are not so aware of what's happening there, right? But unlike the millennials, which they've always known, all they've known is, oh, yes, we have to work towards what we're doing. We want to really learn, grow, and get these things done together so that we can get ourselves into that place. So they try to gather all that they need together to get into that place of job because they are ready. I see Gen Zs, some of them, not all, some of them are just relaxed. They're not even, trying to research too much about the organization. I know when I get there, I just talk them into what I can do, and then we're in there. So these are like some of the differences that you can find between the millennials or the baby boomers and the Gen Zs when it comes to the workplace currently. I think I'll just stop there. And as we advance, I'm sure many other things will be popping up, and I would share more experience with this set of people.
All right, thank you so much for that. Let me go to Mohammed Adijat. We hear Gen Zs clamoring for a more conducive work environment, which is not something that the millennials are actually used to. I mean, they were just all about going to work, making money, whether or not the work environment was toxic, whether it was would I say enjoyable. It really wasn't a thing. But now we see that it looks as though the Gen Zs feel more entitled to a positive work culture, friendly work colleagues. Why do you think they're so particular about that?
Okay, thank you. So there is a difference between the millennials and the Gen Z. And one reason why most Gen Zs behave the way they do is because of technology. Technology has provided an environment for them to, think and see things easier from their own perspective. I'll say globalization and technology, the world has been revolving and will always continue to revolve. There have been technologies, machines and everything that help ease work and everything. So these Gen Zs are born in these years, in this particular century. They don't want to work, they don't want to do anything as a result of the technological impact they have, that the environment has had an impact on them. And because of that, every Gen Z will always want to make work easy for themselves. Like like I say from Niccolo Machiavelli that said the ends justifies the means. Every Gen Z will do everything they can to achieve their goal, regardless of what method of process they tend to, or the circumstances in the long run. So every Gen Z obviously wants to make their life better, want to make things easier for them, and that's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for that, Mohammed Adijat. Okay, let me quickly hear from Ifepe Nnennia before we take the vox pop that we have, because we actually asked a group of persons what they think about this topic, and we would love to hear their responses. But Nnennia, would you say that this disparity is innate, that's between the Gen Zs and the millennials? Would you say that's how they were born? You know, they say this new generation of children are born different. Or would you say that they were conditioned by a lot of factors, like Baki Adams did mention earlier, that we are in an evolving time? You know, there's technology, there's things exposing the minds of these younger ones to a lot of other things, other possibilities that is making them demand for more, for better living conditions. So which do you think it is? Is it innate? Is that how they just are? Or is it certain factors conditioning their mindset?
Okay, thank you very much. I think they were conditioned in the sense that technology, they have free access to technology. And you agree with me that while we're growing up, that access to data wasn't something we could think of. But right now they have access to data, they have access to information. There's even an overload of information. So I would say they were conditioned. So in the sense that the environment, so nurture plays a huge role. So the environment is telling them you can do this, you are free to do this, you can talk back to someone, you have a right to express yourself, you have a right to be heard. And so personally, I believe that they were conditioned by the environment where they found themselves. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for that. Very quickly, I want us to take a look at what the people outside think about the whole Gen Z millennial comparison. Let's take a look and come back.
I've been a PA for about 6 months, 1 year, and it was very funny because, I mean, they were even sending me a message because I was young. Like it was funny. People working there, like, hey, come and buy this. And like, after 6 months, I have to stop. Like, I'm not a messenger, I beg. I came here to make money, not to send me on an errand and all those things. The other experience on teaching is just the student. The student can be wicked. They can be. I mean, it just depends on how you teach the pupil. I've taught JAM class, I've taught WAEC class, and the students are different. You know, the WAEC class can be gentle, but you see those JAM students, they try and test your abilities, and if you are not careful, you can say something that will mess them up.
I work in a recovery company actually, and that was not where I intentionally want to work because I actually don't even have knowledge about working in a recovery company. So calling people and getting them to curse you every day, abuse you, are you mad, are you this, are you that, it's kind of not what I like and what I even want to continue doing, because I want to see myself in a better place, working in a good environment where it's not toxic, where it's favorable and the pay is okay. For me, the HR of my company, I feel she does not have the qualities of an HR, because I don't see why an HR should be snitching on our co-members, like the people you employ. You are not supposed to be doing that. But at my own place of work, she's always about doing koi everywhere.
My thinking before getting to the industry or getting to searching for job, I was like to be a manager. So, and presently, I now notice that I have to start from somewhere before getting to the post which I thought I would go to directly. And my job presently now is a good one because I work based on commission. I work in an insurance company.
I applied for the role of a telemarketer it's actually a loan company. My expectations were not too high, But when I got into the job, the pressure and everything and the calls I had to make were so massive. It wasn't really what I had expected, but I was able to jiggle around it, and thanks to some of my colleagues too. So right now I'm still in the job, but I'm still looking for more opportunities to develop myself.
Graduating after school, everybody believes you're going to get this, in quotes, well-paying job and your life is going to just turn around for good all of a sudden. But, you know, it's not as easy as we thought, you know. You try to get a job, the job promises so much but delivers so little. And, you know, in a place where you have your boss always wanting you to do his bidding, and most of them don't even want you to exceed them. So there's little to no contribution to what you can do, except what the board and management have said. We do believe we're going to get the best out of the company, but rather the company is getting the best out of us. Imagine working a job and being deducted for not coming to work on the first day of January. How does that sound?
And my expectations before, you know, getting a placement there was I knew it wasn't going to be easy, that's to be honest. But the expectations were for me to acquire the much knowledge I needed to further my journey in the industry. And my expectations so far, or the reality right now, hasn't been that far-fetched, or it has been, although I didn't expect for me to face the hurdles I'm facing, but
those were the opinions of some of the Gen Zs as well that we're able to get across the state, what they think about the work culture and what they define as a healthy work culture. But in the meantime, we also have joining us Eyitayo Ogunmola, the CEO Utiva, who's joining us live from the United Kingdom. Thank you so much, Eyitayo, for joining us. We have been extensively talking about Gen Zs and the work culture and why it seems as though some of them struggle to thrive in the work culture. So I'm going to do something very quickly. I'm going to ask Baki Adams, and I'm going to ask the same question to Eyitayo. Baki Adams, why do you think, or what do you think Gen Zs define or see as a healthy work culture? What is a non-toxic work culture for a Gen Z?
All right, then that's a pretty interesting question. So the first thing to note is what we are talking about is workplace culture. That is the crux of the matter. Now, my time at Great Place to Work Nigeria, where I interned, this is what they are focused on. They are a global authority on workplace culture. And I had to learn about things, learn about Gen Zs and what they think workplace culture should be like across the world. And I read several reports. So the first thing we should understand is Gen Zs have, it looks like I'm not referring to myself. So we have a higher sense of, what I call it, purpose and ambition. We always seek to find purpose in the things that we do. And if you listen to the interviews, there was someone who spoke about the job she collected, and she wasn't just attuned to it. She didn't find purpose. She didn't find satisfaction. So that's one key aspect. Do they find enjoyment? Do they find satisfaction in that particular job they're doing? Next, in terms of support, it's very important. Likewise, there's that problem of pressure. When a Gen Z gets into the corporate office setting, there's workload, there's pressure, there's this task coming up, that task coming up. Let me give you from my practical example. When I resumed at Great Place to Work and I started, I had interned remotely before. And yes, I had experienced the workload and pressure, but getting into the corporate office setting, the 9 to 5, it was much different. It was task upon task upon task. And yes, I was overwhelmed. So now it shows that I was quite overwhelmed, but I needed help. And I would give a shout out to my direct line supervisor, George Undubu, who was a strong support to me. And that's one thing Gen Zs also want, a strong support. So we are building upon the kind of workplace culture that Gen Z wants, strong support. Do you have that kind of support that would help these Gen Zs when they feel pressured, when they feel cornered, or when they feel overwhelmed? Now, the idea is either fight or flight. When that pressure comes, when that overwhelm comes, as humans, we will choose one of those two options. It's either we fight it and overcome it, or we flight. Let me use it in that context. So in this workplace culture, when that pressure came, and I would use it from my point of view, I reached out to him, George Ndugbu, he's the digital strategist at Great Place to Work Nigeria. And what he did was to bring me under his arms, help me understand how to manage my time, because it's quite important. Tasks would keep on coming. This company is working with over 50 organizations across Nigeria, so there would always be tasks coming up on my desk. So there was that aspect of learning how to manage my time and learning how to manage it, not just manage it, but manage it effectively. Because there were certain tasks that were good and there were certain tasks that could actually be left for much later. Then to the aspect that most Gen Zs like cowering under, which is the aspect of mental health well-being. And in today's workplace, it is a rising trend. Most organizations are starting to take notice of it because the Gen Zs are getting into the workforce. So in this aspect, a Gen Z wants support, wants emotional support. And there's this aspect of, when relating to workplace culture, I'm using my knowledge based on Great Place to Work Nigeria, there's the aspect of camaraderie and trust. In terms of companionship, the Gen Zs want that relations, they want to relate. That is how we've grown. And if you look at millennials, you look at how they were born, in terms of socialization, it was physical. But when it comes to Gen Z, how we socialize is now in the online space. Social media gives us that alternate avatar through which we socialize. So there's that need to foster that stronger connection and all, and it also has its disadvantages. So in terms of the right kind of workplace, you need the support. You need the right kind of HR that supports camaraderie and trust. And there's also the aspect of paying fairly. Gen Zs want to be paid fairly, and this is a fact, given how economic trends have gone compared to the 1990s down to 2025. So yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Now, Eyitayo Ogunmola, I'm asking you the same question, and I want to emphasize, do you think that Gen Zs are asking for too much? Do you think all of these things are beyond the purview of the company? Because it feels like you literally want the company to parent you and make sure that you're completely fine when their goal is to actually build their company and you help them. So it's as though the Gen Zs are supposed to help them build their company, but now the company is helping build Gen Zs. Do you think so, or do you think that their desires are justified?
So much. I mean, I'm just going to go straight to the point. Of course, the desires are justified. Every generation has got a certain responsibilities, and every generation has also got a certain expectation, and you cannot take that away from that generation. I have been so privileged to work and mentor more than 1,000 Gen Zs. I used to run an organization that trained, students in higher institutions, and I worked with a lot of them. And one of the things I've really learned that this generation will, in their own way, will prove you wrong, every time. So you better learn from them. Things shouldn't be the way they've always been. This generation is unique, has got its own intelligence, and you can disagree. But if you look at the numbers, you realize that they are towing their own path and they're becoming successful in their own way. Of course, every generation has got its responsibility. When I was growing up, my parents also did not agree with everything I decided to do. They disagreed with many of the things that I said, I didn't like. So, for example, my parents were so much religious. I grew up in a very religious environment. At a certain time in my life, I made up my mind on what I wanted to do, religiously and in the other way. I disagree with my parents in terms of how we should, approach spending money and saving money. My mom, when I was growing up, was very worried in terms of the way I thought about money. I had read a lot of books that my parents did not read. So I had a unique insight into how we should save, how we should spend, and how we should invest. But my mom disagreed with that. But I told my own path when I grew up, so every generation has got its own insight into how they wanted to live life. One of the things we need to realize about the Gen Z is that they watched us grow. My younger sisters watched me grow. They saw how I went to the university and how I committed my entire life to studying at school. How I made 292 out of JAMB. And they saw that from afar and realized that, see, Edmond did all these things and was still broke. He went to the university, he graduated, and couldn't get a job at the end of the day. This guy was unemployed for 2 years, and they saw it themselves. And they made up their mind that, see, it looks like education in Nigeria is not going to be the best path. And they went the other path, in developing themselves and, finding alternatives. So look at a generation that would ask themselves, with all the dedication of their elder brothers to their work, they were still fired anyway. So why should they dedicate that much to a job that does not give, a work-life balance? So when you look at their parents and they say, hey, my parents dedicated their lives to this job and they still got broke. That is the generation you want to tell to also dedicate their life to a job that would not give a work-life balance. I run a company today and I see how Gen Zs want to work. But I can't also blame them because every generation has got its own aspiration. I wouldn't ask anybody to die on my own aspiration if I'm not going to create a work-life experience that is really very good for that generation. If I'm not going to learn from them and take a feedback from them and build a cordial relationship with them that gives me that opportunity to get the type of insight that they have. I've got two options. The first option is to either let them go and do whatever they're excited about. And by the way, if you let them go, they will go do whatever they're excited about and they will become successful in that field, in that area, with or without you. The other option that you have is to mentor them and also be humble enough to learn from that generation. You can't compete with them. They've got better insights. They've got more information on social media, and they know how to use the social media better than many of us, right? So if you want to compete with that generation, you would lose. The best approach is to learn from them. However, I do also need to say that generation is making a certain type of mistake, because I work with a lot of them and I see that, they're lonely because everything is quite very social media driven and there's little or no human interaction. And that is where we need to then step in, but not step in terms of like, hey, try to bully them and speak over their head and say, hey, this is the way you should live. It's just some sort of like providing guidance and the mentorship to that generation, and helping them also get better, and that's what our parents did when we were making decisions in terms of like what we wanted to do. Like my mom wanted me to become an apostle in church. And then I grew up like seeing that, hey, I don't agree with many of the things that I see in churches, and I started pulling out. But she didn't speak over my head. She started mentoring me and guiding me. It's just like, hey, if you're not going to go to church night, 24 hours, the way that older generation went, there's an alternative, there's a better way to serve God and all these other things. I disagree with my parents in terms of like money and handling, finances. They disagreed with me, but they didn't speak over my head. They guided me and allowed me to also make my decisions on things that are important to me. And when I see this generation today, the Gen Z, I also don't agree with everything they do, but I don't think my responsibility is to stand in the place of criticism. I think my responsibility is to stand in the place of mentoring, but I also want to learn from them because they are better than my generation. They've got a lot of unique insights. See what those guys are doing on social media. See how they're leveraging social media to make millions. Do I want to be in the place to be arguing with them, or maybe if something is right or wrong, or maybe learn from them and use that insight to also improve, what I do? When I look at the Gen Z that work with me, how these chaps create content that go viral is what I don't still understand. If they're able to hack that, then the older generation needs to learn from that. And that's my take. So I don't think they're expecting too much. To summarize this, I think ultimately they've got an expectation from us as the older generation. And the expectation, if you don't meet it, you've got two options: to either leave them to go do their own thing, what they're excited about. And the option, which I would recommend, is to be in the place of, mentoring and guidance as against just speaking over their head and trying to bully them into what we feel that is right.
All right, thank you so much for that, Eyitayo. That was extensive, and I like that your comparison was fair, the things that you can possibly learn from this generation, because truth be told, they are making the money, and they're using their skills as best they can. But I want to quickly ask Mohammed Adijat, before we go on break, what are some of the common misconceptions that the Gen Zs, that people have about the Gen Zs and their attitudes towards work. You know, these days, once you just hear it, in fact, we know of some companies who do not even want to hire Gen Zs. There's just this preconceived notion that they're rude, they're overly blunt, they don't last, they can't sustain the job, and all of that. What are some of the common misconceptions, and what do you think is the actual truth?
Something about Gen Zs and everything about them, basically. The way we think is different from how the millennials think and everything. This is because of technology, interconnectedness, you know, people meet people, networking and the likes. So there is these misconceptions about Gen Zs that they are always like frustrated, they have this mental health, they are always depressed and the likes. Look at my fingers, they are not equal. Everybody is not equal. My brain capacity is different from someone else's brain capacity. The way I think is different from how other people think. So there's something about workers and employers in the workplace. Employers bring about business just to make profits. They prioritize profit maximization over everything. They don't care about your mental health. They don't care about how you feel about a particular thing. They just want to make money. And as a result of that, it brings this, you know, depression, mental issues, you know, everybody, all the Gen Zs basically are always like, this is not how things are meant to be. Some of these workplace use outdated technologies on which we are not used to. Outdated technologies to do things. We can actually make things easier by doing it with another way, basically. Like, you know, people have started building AI, you know, machines, technologies that will better life. Look at China, look at Finland, look at America. They are building technologies that will ease lives for everybody. And we are Generation Z, we are meant to use all this. And I feel like the employers should just stop using outdated technology because it is frustrating to an extent. Thank you very much.
Okay, all right. On that note, we'll go on a very short break. And when we come back, we still have two millennials who I want to ask about this misconceived notions about the Gen Zs. We are nowhere near done. When we come back, Fafanua continues. Stay with us. Many thanks for staying with us. You're still live with us on Fafanua Africa, and we've been talking about Gen Zs thriving in the workplace, especially 9 to 5. What are the reasons why it seems like they're struggling, and what are the comparisons between this generation and the ones before? We have our amazing guests who have been doing justice to this. And to continue very quickly, because of our time, I'd like to ask Joshua Oluwadepo. Now, we've heard some of the reasons that Gen Zs give for wanting a better workplace culture, wanting to use the updated technology, you know, the frustration that comes with using outdated technology. So my question to you is, do you think that the workplace would have been more enjoyable rather than endurable if the millennials, I know that they did not have the kind of technology that exists now, but to some extent there were tools that could have helped them do better that were not at their disposal. Do you think that they would have been happier at work if they adopted, you know, the measures that the Gen Zs are using now, that's been more vocal, demanding what they want and sticking to it? Do you think work would have been more enjoyable for them?
All right, thank you very much for that question. So I would pick up from the previous question and then just try and see how we can put it together. So one thing I know about the Gen Zs is that they always speak up, right? They want to have their way. And Eyitayo also mentioned that these people are doing things for themselves and they are achieving success. They want to go all the way in their own way to get their things done. And then also speaking about the misconceptions, you know, I was just add to what you already said at the time, that we think that they are lazy people, but they are not lazy. Actually, in fact, they are very efficient. They want an efficient workspace. Sometimes we also think that the Gen Zs, talking about Gen Zs now, thinking that the Gen Zs, that they want to just work remotely, they don't want to come to the office. No, they just want life balance, basically. They want a work-life balance kind of atmosphere for themselves. And then speaking to the millennials, I know that, so I can say I'm a millennial, but we have, I've been working with the Gen Z for some time now. And I would say that if the millennials had the tools that these people have now, they would have found work more interesting. For instance, in one of my previous places of work where I worked before now, when I got into the organization, I saw that processes were still, old-fashioned, traditional, papers here and there. What's this? How are things being done this way? And they were comfortable. I'm talking about a staff base of close to about 3,000. They were comfortable with papers. They were comfortable with such processes. And I wondered, no, this shouldn't be. Then brought in a little bit of, innovative ideas and see how we can automate these processes. And it made things easier. In fact, we found more people, have a balanced life because what we did was around, leave application, trying to bring about a work-life balance for these young people. And it was really, really great. So I would say that the millennials would appreciate it if they had this kind of technology that the Gen Zs are enjoying now. And I think one of the things that we can do as millennials currently now is to begin to adapt to these technologies. I'm using this to say that company owners, entrepreneurs out there, we should begin to see these tools because they are very good for work. It makes things easier. It makes work seamless, actually. Personally, I don't like when things are just, following a lot of long processes. I must streamline it. Let's make things better. Technology would always make life easy, and the Gen Zs are enjoying that now. And these are one of the things that they always want to see when they go into new places, start their new jobs. They want to see those technologies at work. They hear of their friends or people that they know in the UK, in China, in other countries, thriving and getting things done in a shorter period of time because there's technology, there are good tools that they can use. All right. So that's really up. And I think millennials on their side again, they would have enjoyed having these tools in their own season and it would have made work easier. And I think it would have even made them adapt quickly into so one thing that this will also help the new generations coming will be that the Gen Zs will be able to adapt quickly into the new technologies because they have these things already, they've been exposed to it. So what we should do as millennials is to quickly adapt and then flow with it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Okay, we have 2 minutes to wrap up. So I'm just going to ask Baki and I'm also going to ask, let me see who I want to ask this question. Okay, Ifepe Nnennia. So Baki, very quickly. Now, I know that Gen Zs are big on, and this has been a long-standing argument, hybrid and remote versus, in-person work. So very quickly, I want you to defend why Gen Zs feel the necessity not to come to work, if I should put it that way, in few seconds because we don't have time. So I'm going to ask Ifepe the same question, what she thinks as, an employer representative.
All right, so I'll just sum that up with efficiency and time management. We believe you do not need that long 9 to 5. There are certain things you do not need to stay in the office for that long. In 6 hours, I should be done if I have certain tasks to handle. From 9 to 3, if I have tasks on my table, I should be able to handle it in that time. So from 3 to 5, what else am I doing in the office? So that's the general belief. And in terms of being hybrid, being remote, we understand how the pandemic has influenced that. So it's, excuse me. So it's important that we ourselves prioritize work-life balance and would prefer a hybrid work model. So yes, just about efficiency, and we believe that we don't need that much time to do what you have to do in a day.
Okay, great. So Ifepe, let me come to you. Now, I know that also recruiters are not exactly entirely welcoming of hybrid is manageable, but remote is not. Why do you think that is?
I think the employers believe that apart from the efficiency it brings, that sometimes it makes some of them lazy. Like they will just do the work and there's no other thing that they're going to do. So I think the employers are not yet adaptable to the changes which the pandemic brought. So for the Gen Zs, they believe, I can stay at home and do whatever I want to do. And if I can do that, then that's that. But the employers believe that apart from your work, there are other things you can also do in the office. And there are other things that also coming to the office will also help you learn. Interaction with people, knowing how to handle people, knowing how to handle conflicts and the rest like that. So I think that's the argument for the employers. But personally, I believe that the pandemic helped us realize that we can do hybrid. To me, remote, I still stand for hybrid, if you ask me. Thank you.
All right, great. So very quickly, let me take the final take from the others. We still have about 3 minutes to go. So, Eyitayo, what's your final take on the whole Gen Z, millennial, and a work environment for Gen Zs and how they can thrive? Very quickly.
Ask them, if you run an organization and you really want to get the best out of them, you need to consult them, you need to work with them. 3 things I would recommend. Number 1 is to get a manager that understands, this generation and is able to give direction, leadership, and mentoring to them. Number 2 is to be performance driven as against just, presence driven. These are the things that we want you to achieve this month as against we want you to be at ABC at a certain time. And number 3 is we need to ensure that we continue to learn from them. They've got a lot to offer at the previous generation. And if you want to run a hyper growth, hyper scale organization, you just want to sit down and say, hey, what is the best structure and strategy and model that we can develop to learn from them? And that could come in form of like engaging them in focus groups and meetings, learning directly or surveys. And that will help you, to sell directly to the markets that they represent, number 1. But most importantly, also get an insight into some of the things that they do efficiently and seamlessly.
Right. Thank you so much. Dad, your final take?
Harshly to their workers, they need to motivate them, talk to them, pay them well, an efficient enabling environment they can work with. And I just feel like they need to provide an enabling environment that will make things easier for Gen Zs, because they are literally different from the millennials. Their thinking capacity, their faculty and everything is literally different from the millennials. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Joshua, what's your final take on this conversation?
A good asset to generation currently and even going forward. But if they have the right environment and if they're mentored right, they are going to get the best out of them. That's my final take.
Great. All right, Baki Adams, your final take.
So I would like to agree with what he just said. We are an asset. You should recognize that fact. So I would say millennials should partner with us, work with us, mentor us, guide us, and help us understand our mistakes, help us understand our deficiencies. If we work together, then we'd reach that desired goal that we both would like to achieve. So thank you.
All right. Last but not the least, Ifepe, what's your final take?
Okay, I think I will tell the Gen Zs that life is not bread and butter all the time. Just learn to follow process, and also believe that there should be a synergy between the millennials and the Gen Zs so that we'll be able to get a better result at the end of the day. Thank you.
All right. That said, this is the perfect place to draw the curtain. And I'm just going to say that, at the end of the day, it's all about balance, being able to adopt to both ideologies to create a better working condition for both parties. And it's not just the millennials and the Gen Zs that are in the conversation. The employers are also in the conversation. In fact, clients are in the conversation because we have Gen Z business owners, and sometimes there might be friction between themselves and the clients because they do not understand how they think. So I feel like the openness to, embrace the new ideas that they bring, and also Gen Zs, try and calm down. Really, everything should not go smoothly, because I think, to be honest, that's one of the detriments, the fact that the Gen Zs believe that everything needs to be smooth, and so they get easily frustrated. It affects their mental health a lot when things do not go as planned. So at the end of the day, like I said, it's all about balance. Thank you so much for watching Fafanua Africa, and my 5 panelists who have done absolute justice to this conversation. Thank you as well. The millennials represented, the employers represented, the Gen Zs represented. We appreciate your time with us on the show. Do well to rewatch, share, like, comment on our pages, and follow us and watch our subsequent episodes, because we are bringing important discussions like this one that affects the youth across the African continent. My name is Blessings Musugo. It's been an absolute pleasure being your host for the show. See you again on the next episode. Till then, have a great day.